you're okay with recording it. Just for purposes of using this for the future. Now that that's taken care of, Greg, could you share the presentation?
Yep.
All right. So, hello everybody. I am John Vonderhaar. I am going to be moderating this shindig. Before we get into what the shindig is, this is going to be the inaugural Iowa Xi Leadership Orientation course, also known as XiLOC. That's where the XiLOC came from. The purpose of this course is to take the new alumni leaders, provide them with all the information, background, tools, and tricks that we currently have available to members of our newly expanded Iowa Xi leader body. This will allow us to know roughly the same amount as our compatriots and ensure that we're working in lockstep. Some Zoom etiquette, if you'd like, please edit your name to show your name and the year you graduated, just so we can kind of know what area you're from. You can do that by right-clicking on your picture, selecting rename, changing the name, and clicking OK. I'll also be in charge of monitoring the time tonight in an effort to make sure we try to stay as close to possible within our scheduled time as possible. We don't want to go too long and have you guys lose some sleep. We plan on having a short question and answer session after each presenter, like 2 to 3 minutes. And then at the end of the course, we're going to have a longer format so we can have a little bit more time to get some of your questions answered if you have them. Feel free to either put your questions in the chat box if you like, or if you want, you can verbally ask them when the presenter asks if there are any questions. If the questions and answers go a little bit into the weeds, I'll stop it and say, hey, we'll address this offline after the fact, so we can get a little bit more in depth and continue with the presentation. The agenda for tonight is Paul Peterson will be presenting on the background and impetus of all the recent changes to the alumni board associations in general. Next slide, please, Greg. Corey Millmeyer will be presenting on the alumni chapter. Joe Rood will be presenting on the Iowa Xi Foundation. And tonight, Tom Mercer will be presenting on the building corporation. Then moving on to some of the committees that are involved, Connor Wiseman will be presenting on the finance committee. Matt Braffart will be presenting on the communications committee, and Paul Peterson will pop up again, this time presenting on the development committee. Then we'll move on to Greg Stolt presenting on some of the leader expectations and next steps that we have. Paul Peterson will show up again and speak on some of the references and tools that we have available to you. There will be more in the future, but just getting you knowledgeable of what we have now. Then we're gonna finish up with the longer format Q&A session. And then I'll finalize everything with a short closing statement. We're gonna move on to, unless anybody has any questions or concerns about that introduction, we're gonna move on to either Paul Peterson, or I don't know if Paul's actually is here yet. Greg might be presenting on the background and impetus.
All right, thanks, John. Paul called just a few minutes ago. He's running a little late, so he'll join us later on for some of his other presentations. So I would like to just provide our leaders for Iowa Xi a quick background as to how we got to where we are today. So the purpose of the course is multi-purpose. The first and foremost is to ensure that all of our alumni leaders are on the same page and that everyone is marching in the same direction. Those are Paul's words, by the way, not mine, but I probably would have said the same thing. Really, one of the main catalysts for why we're here tonight is because of the Jim Victor gift. And you will hear more about that later this evening, but the Jim Victor gift to Iowa Xi really is a transformational opportunity for not only the undergraduate chapter, but also our alumni organization. And it presents a lot of opportunities. And we'd like to really start off by thanking all of you for, being a part of that transformation. And thank you for, seizing the opportunities as a group. So we're going to provide a quick overview of the new Iowa Xi Alumni Organization. We'll talk a little bit later on about future plans. You'll hear from different leaders. And then we'll cover expectations of all of us as leaders in the organization and resources available. So how did we get here? As I mentioned, the primary catalyst is the gift from Jim Victor. Jim, graduate of '68, a contemporary of Jim Willer and Mike Canny, died tragically in 2018. In his will, in his estate plan, he left a gift to Iowa Xi of about $1.1 million. And most of that gift has already been received by Iowa Xi. So to put it in context, it is the single largest estate gift left by a Phi Kappa alumnus to the fraternity. And that includes the national fraternity or any local chapter. It's probably the second largest gift ever made by an alumnus, living or dead, to a Phi Kappa Theta chapter. The largest, we're pretty certain, was left by Paul Allen when he bequeathed $3.5 million to the Washington State chapter. So this is a pretty significant gift, and we're treating it with the respect and care it deserves. So, of course, we needed smart people, or we hope. Most of the people other than me on that committee were smart, but the corporation board back in 2019 commissioned a committee of Joe Rude, Mike Canny, Jim Flanagan, John Hicks, Nick Van Berkem, Corey Millmeyer, Jake Stratton, and Blake Usick as the undergrad presidents to serve on the Victor Committee. They provided a number of recommendations, and the original charter was really just to provide recommendations on the management of the gift and the use of the gift. But as the committee worked on it, they realized, wow, what a huge opportunity this can be for the Iowa Xi chapter. And so their scope expanded. The bottom line is they recognized that this was really a once in 100-year cycle to bring up Iowa Xi to a best-in-class chapter for generations to come. So the output from the Victor Gift Committee essentially was organized into 5 areas. It included communications development, which is really inviting alumni to give time, talent, and treasure. Program investment, which is taking the proceeds from the gift each year and investing in the program of the fraternity at the chapter level. Asset stewardship, which is management of the gift, and governance. So all these recommendations were approved by the corporation board in 2020 and 2021. Right now, we are very well positioned to incorporate the changes, but they do represent a significant overhaul of what the organization looked like just a few years ago. I see Paul just joined us. So Paul, when I'm done with this slide, I'm going to turn it over to you.
You know what? I'll just take it right here because this is the part I wrote anyway.
Good. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, apologies, guys. Preschool open house. So the biggest thing was like 10 years ago, if we had had this gift, we wouldn't have been in a good spot to be able to really do what we needed to do with it. And we were well positioned because of the success we had at the Capitol campaign. What that did is the campaign and the renovation renewed interest and participation in the alumni chapter from the alumni point of view. That helped strengthen the alumni chapter. And then the renovation itself was one of the things that really helped us strengthen the undergraduate chapter. If you remember, before that, our numbers were very poor, and we were trying to turn this thing around. Nope, girls, sorry, I got a lot of help here. The VGC strategy, right, is to invest in the program of Phi Kappa Theta. So we're investing in brothers, not the building, is one thing. You need to stop talking. We talked about this. As a reminder, guys, the PKT mission to actively serve men to be effective leaders, servant leaders who passionately serve society, fraternity, and God. Okay, keep going. Slide. Help me out with the slide there.
Yeah, I know. That's me, and my screen froze up. So keep talking. I'll get to that. So.
Okay.
Keep going.
I will go off of the slide deck. And sorry, guys, for the technical difficulty, and sorry for all the noise. It's a crazy night in my house, but it always is. Okay. Where we're at now, okay? We don't need to go into this. You guys have seen it. We'll be talking, but as a reminder, we went from one singular entity into a C7, that's the alumni chapter that oversees everything, a building corporation, that's our 501c2, and the foundation, that's a C3. Next slide. Okay, so we have separate entities, but we're really all in common, right? We all have the same members. Charters and bylaws are different for each entity, but there's a lot of, it's the same organization, right? How we were set up is just good practice to protect our assets and to protect ourselves and really function well. Go ahead, Greg. So we have the board of directors, right? You guys have understand because you're in the middle of this. We have the, for both the alumni chapter, which oversees everything, and the foundation and building board of directors. And then we have a lot of appointees that come in on that. Keep going. Again, this is just quick oversight. These are the different areas of the alumni chapter, the different committees and teams that we have. Then we'll go over to, I believe, the building corporations or the foundation, same thing. Now let's go to building. There we go. Questions on this part of it, gentlemen?
I'm good.
Okay, now let's get into the meat and potatoes here. Corey?
You bet. And we rolled through that pretty quickly, but I'm assuming most of you have seen the entity structure, heard it at a high level. I'll kind of reference the overall structure, but then focus a little bit more on the alumni chapter here. And so we'll advance a slide. I'll also reiterate, Corey Millmeyer, I've remained active since graduating in 2012, kind of in a treasurer role, but now it's kind of stepped into the president role to make sure that things keep rolling forward as we have planned and expected to. So enjoying it and enjoying everyone being involved. And so as the alumni chapter, I copied and pasted that image of all the men from that 3 entity slide, because the alumni chapter is comprised of the alumni of Iowa Xi and alumni of Phi Kappa Theta from other chapters that choose to get involved with Iowa Xi. And so we're a new social 501c3 is our IRS tax exempt designation, but we're this social entity that handles all of the relationships and the events that enrich those relationships. So it could be homecoming, it could be the golf outing, it could be a development session for the undergrads. And so we have this entity. You would have, voted at homecoming for the directors of this new entity, because unlike the building corporation and the foundation, our entity directors are elected. And then there's additional officers that are appointed. And so, as I said, I'm going to keep saying brotherhood again, because this is truly the culture of the fraternity. And it also leads the strategic vision and oversight of the other entities. We're going to be working, or we are working on a lot of systems, on a lot of communications, on a lot of development strategies. And regardless of what entity it's falling within, it needs to be one voice and march in step, as we mentioned earlier. So the alumni chapter, the overarching board, is really ensuring that that happens. And then we'll speak in a slide or two later about the flexibility that this new entity structure, that's not just a 501c2, but 3 entities, it provides us flexibility both in fundraising, in messaging, and development of building and grounds and programs. So I have you forward the slide. All right, so I mentioned it's a social entity, so any finances that relate to homecoming, other events, golf outing, any summer programs, the Greg Stein Brotherhood Weekend, the initial financing, money raised and money spent is going to flow through this alumni chapter. We're also working on a customer relationship management system, which essentially is going to manage our donors, manage our alumni communications, and make sure that we're creating messages that that reach alumni at their stage in life, with a clear need for what we're trying to raise money for, a record of donations given so we can appropriately thank them and continue that enriched relationship. And then, as you probably would have received in the mail this week, the Zyklone, making sure that that any events, happenings, both at the undergrad level and alumni level, are getting out there so that alumni stay engaged and know what's happening. And so words that this really boils down to, obviously transformation. We hear it all the time, enhanced operations and enhanced culture. Let you go to the next one. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time when I said flexibility of finances and operations. There's going to be a distinct split when it comes to fundraising. And the fulcrum here is really if tax deductibility matters to the IWSI brother or friend that's making a donation to our organization as a whole. And so this was really driven through lots of discussions with our accountants and Bill Boatwright, the attorney that we engaged with in the development of these new articles of incorporations and bylaws. We ended up making a decision to split the Jim Victor funds 70% into the foundation and 30% into the alumni chapter. And there was a strategic reason for that. And so as we work through this slide top down, most people are familiar with a C3. Well, you know, it's our churches, it's areas in the community that have eleemosynary purpose. They're supporting a good cause. And so tax deductibility exists with these 501c3s. So if folks aren't taking standard deduction and itemizing, they might have a desire to have a tax deductible donation. So we want that option, and we established our local foundation, which achieves that. If it's not a critical desire, or they want to support a fund that's not inside the foundation, well, we're going to have a way to receive those funds as well, just not be tax deductible. And that will flow into the alumni chapter bank accounts and investment accounts. And so the uses of these donations are distinct. The foundation, you can really boil it down to two spend purposes. It's going to be to develop men, both undergrads and alumni, and to further the educational endeavors of our undergrads, whether that be, and I don't want to go in, I don't want to steal Joe's thunder, but it could be scholarships or tutoring or whatever else, but very focused on those items that go in line with the mission of the C3. On the other side,
to be clear, the IWSI Foundation contributions, the deductible contributions, still, albeit indirectly, contribute to the benefit of IWSI chapter, not national, right?
Correct. Yep. This is
our
our
indirect, but it's still IWSI as opposed to national.
Exactly. Yep. The IWSI Foundation, a newly formed foundation. Yes. Yep. And so if we want to, let's take one step back up here to that. The funds that exist as of this moment, and there will be new funds in the future, no doubt, as we find new purposes for funds. We have the Jim Victor Endowment Fund, primarily in the foundation. We'll have this newly created Greg Stein Memorial Fund that will focus on educational aspects. And then on the other side, the Stand in the Gap Fund will stay in the alumni chapter. There will be more flexibility for how those funds are used, and that will be determined later. But there's a distinction in the funds that we have now into which entity it falls in. And then I like to think of this as not a tax limitation, but a tax opportunity. We're going to be able to have money in the C7 for enhanced organizational systems. The building corporation will be able to access these funds for both maintenance of the property and potentially challenge grants or funding for the next capital campaign. And then also support of all of our systems dealing with communications. And then I also already talked about the development side of things and the foundation, but also legacy giving will be a very beneficial tax planning and opportunity for folks to give back to the fraternity. Kind of wanted to highlight the members that make up the alumni chapter. I think I saw several on the call tonight, but we have Bob Homolka as vice president. Ted Anders is doing a great job with our membership records and getting all of our communication data updated and refreshed. Connor Wiseman, a CPA, has stepped into the treasurer role. Matt Braffart is leading the communications charge with a lot of CRM work, Zyclone, all of that. Greg Stolp, everybody's familiar with all the things he's involved with. We got Lane Crosser as a member at large, and then we have Joe and Tom participating on the alumni chapter calls as kind of the voice of the other two entities. Derek Doble joins our call monthly. He's a police officer in Ames, but he kind of serves as our chapter advisor. He's planning to have dinner with the guys next Wednesday. Just kind of that connection or liaison between university, alumni board, and undergrads. And then Connor, we just appointed him to the alumni chapter as the new undergrad president. And then I wanted to highlight the committees that are part of the alumni chapter. Executive, really the core of the alumni chapter. We have governance, which I lead, which has been the lion's share of the initial stuff, getting the entity set up. Connor heads the finance committee with the other treasurers. And then on down the line, development, communications, history, membership all have their initiatives. So near-term initiatives. This is a little bit of a text-heavy slide, but I just wanted us to get it out there. All the things that we're trying to move forward on near and middle term. We obviously have our annual events like golf outing and homecoming, but we'll also work towards having an annual Founders Day. All these various systems that I've talked about, updating the website. It's holistically just going to make us a more connected and have more enhanced relations. And we're also always looking for guys to be involved. So if you know someone that further wants to step on and help us out, get them in touch with Greg or Paul. And then from a long-term perspective, we have our centennial celebration coming up in 2024, which will really, take a lot of involvement, but that'll be part of the fun is bringing through our various, generations to make it happen. And then Leo Landis, as you'll see his Facebook posts for the history committee, but they're putting together an IOSI history for the first 100 years, kind of showcasing the fraternity. And so I'll hand it over for questions at this time.
If there are no questions, I don't see any in the chat. Joe Rood will be presenting on the foundation next.
All right, I'm up. Thank you, Corey. Very interesting, and you did make my job a little bit easier on what I'm covering. So let's go to the next slide, John. So I am Joe Root. I'm class of 81, and I'm currently serving as the president of the Iowa XI Foundation. So just, I'll make this brief that this is a new organization. It was a new corporation founded in 2021, and really 2022, this year, this month is really our first operating month. So it is a separate corporation, but it's really important to emphasize that we're partners, that we're aligned with the goals of the alumni chapter and with the goals of the house. So we each have independent charges depending on the area we're in, but we're working as a group. So the board members of the Iowa XI Foundation are appointed by the Iowa XI Alumni Chapter. And I think it was mentioned before by Paul that very few chapters in the country have a foundation at all or an endowment the size of Iowa XI. So that's a competitive advantage. Let's go to the next slide, please. So I'm just going to say two things here because we covered this a little bit. One is we are in an ideal position, and all of us on this call are in this position because someone before us did something and put it in place for us. And so we have two things, many people to thank, but first of all, the existing board or the previous board of the Ames Phi Kappa Building Company really for years put this thing together and really set the stage for where we are now. And also I want to say a couple words about Jim Victor. I met him, but didn't know him well. But in the last 2 years, I've had a chance to spend some time with his family, with his brothers. And he really was an amazingly enthusiastic Phi Cap brother. And he just pursued excellence with passion in everything he did. He was tremendously successful at Morgan Stanley. He was a successful volunteer and philanthropist and successful in auto racing. That was one of his many passions. From talking to his family, Phi Kappa Theta Iowa XI really transformed him. When his brother said he went away to college, and by the time he came back at Christmas time, he was just overflowing with confidence of what he learned from his experience at Iowa XI. And he was very thankful for that. His family didn't really understand what happened, how that happened. But I think all of us can identify with that we got something from the fraternity that you don't necessarily get from college. So his gift is a great example to us, and it's a great challenge to us as an organization and as individuals to pay it forward. So next slide, please. This is just a snapshot of the Iowa XI Foundation finances. So I'm not going to go in a lot of detail of that, but the Iowa XI Foundation has established written policies that govern all of our activities, our investment policies, our spending policies, our grant policies, governance, and more. And we really, our challenge is to set this up to be like a real foundation. So we have some amazing board members with experience in this area. So we're off and running on that. The endowment is a permanent endowment, which means our spending rate should not exceed the growth rate of the corpus that would be permanent as an asset of the organization to fund programming ongoing. And at this point, that is going to be around $30,000 per year in grant funding. So next slide, please.
Sorry, keep going, Joe. I'm having computer locked
Okay, so the next slide is about the foundation grant making process. And so with this, it's a lot of busy words there, but we're committed to transforming our organization and our operations so that we are in the best position to develop members as servant leaders. The grants that are given out will be tracked on the impact that they have on the organization. Chris Martin from the class of '88 is the grant chairman. I also sit on that committee. Craig Peterson and Robbie Bonus also are members of that committee. So let's go to the next slide.
Yeah.
So on the next slide, we have an org chart and the board member names. So these are the 12 people. I think most of the board is on the Thursday night call, not the Saturday call. So so I wish I could just point out the talents and the abilities that each of these men bring to the organization, but they're a real asset to the organization because of their experience and also their passion for Iowa's Eye. On the left, the org chart, our main internal committee is the grants committee, chaired by Chris. We serve on some joint committees that are shared committees between the other Iowa's Eye corporations, just to make sure we're in sync and working in concert. So Andrew, who is our board chair, sits on the joint finance committee. Dave Feely, who's our treasurer, sits on the communications committee. I sit on the development committee and the governance committee. So next slide, please.
All right.
And I think the next slide really is questions. If there's any questions. Oh, long-term goals. Next slide, long-term goals. So we are in the process of starting our strategic planning process, but reading the crystal ball, the things that we really want to do kind of in the short to medium term is work towards 100% participation from the alumni. We know the strongest chapters always have the strongest alumni groups, and we just are going to up our game, whether it's a small contribution or a large contribution of finance or talent or time, that we just want to be more engaged as an alumni group. We also want to take our biggest asset, the Victor Endowment, and leverage that just to build the fraternity, build the chapter more. With that size of an endowment, if we manage this correctly, there's just no reason why Iowa's Eye won't be the best chapter on Iowa State campus forever. That we just need to execute with the assets that we have. We also are working really hard to provide the
Joe,
safeguard.
you're getting close to your time limit. Could you wrap it up, please?
Yep. And so that is it. That is it. I will end it right there. I have no more slides after this one.
Does anyone have any questions for Joe about that?
I have one question that's probably self-serving, but the reason Iowa's Eye clone put out and said donate to either the foundation, either to the C7 or the C3, and frankly, I was confused. I said, I know I've sent some money in, but I'm not sure where it went and how much, and have I already done it? Is there a central place to go back and find out what I, or for that matter, any alumni have in fact done, to see where it went and is it enough and should I do more? Where do I go to find that stuff out?
There will be. We're developing that. And your most recent donation, Jim, went to the C3 corporation, the tax deductible corporation. But that's one of the things that we're working on, is developing the donor information system, where we'll be able to show cumulative and annual and provide statements and really give you a picture of where you are.
That's fine. I just wasn't even sure, frankly, if I'd done it. And the letter was everything. Maybe I should do this again, but I wasn't sure if I had done it and go win. So I'm glad that I actually did something. Thank God. We'll move on. Thank you.
Jim, you're welcome to do it again, though.
Yes, you are.
To be clear.
A lack of information, I might have doubled it up. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, guys.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I have one additional response to Jim's question. I think if any alumnus out there has a question or wants information about their giving statement or previous giving, they can always go to one of the 3 treasurers who all serve on the finance committee. That's Connor Weissman, Andrew Mercer, Greg Marceau. And they can also go to Paul and myself, Paul Peterson and Greg Stone. And between the 5 of us, we will get the answer for the alumnus.
Again, any other questions? I don't see any in the chat window, so if there's no more questions, I think we're going to move on to Tom Mercer presenting on the Building Corporation.
Thanks, Jonathan, and good evening, everybody. Like Jonathan said, my name is Tom Mercer, and I am the president of the Phi Kappa Theta Iowa Xi Building Corporation, and that replaced the Ames Phi Kappa Building Corporation last fall. We recently passed new charter and bylaws, and if anybody would ever want to see those charter and bylaws, just direct message me and I can always get them to you, but they're quite lengthy. Excuse me, they're quite lengthy. We have officers and directors that were appointed by the alumni chapter, and those are for 3-year terms. Our committee members, they were appointed by our own building corporation board, and that is also a term of 3 years. Next slide, Greg.
Sorry, my computer is sticky, so just give me a minute. Go ahead, Tom, if you want to keep going.
Next slide is the function. So we are a C2 functioning property organization. That means we are not able to accept, donations as a nonprofit. So the donations are generally not tax deductible unless they're used for like educational things at Phi Kappa Theta. So in other words, if you want to donate to the house, it would have to be like for computers or some for the study room or desk or something that we can prove that are for educational purposes. Excuse me. So our goal and our purpose is to do the maintenance and repairs of the house, to do any acquisitions and sales, do basically the management of the properties, both at 2110 Lincoln Way and 117 Beach. We're also thinking about getting into the contracts, but we haven't really worked that out yet with the renters or the members of the fraternity. So we kind of developed a mission statement that we look to the future to keep our structures viable through the 21st century and beyond, keeping a strong brotherhood as our core belief. And we think that is very important. And Corey stressed that earlier, that brotherhood really should be the key to everything we do. Next one. Okay. So our team is basically in 3 parts. We have our executive committee, we have a building and grounds committee, and we have a planning committee. So our executive committee is made up of myself, Ed Larson, Paul Fisher, Greg Marceau, Paul Gaffney, Ty Mueller. And we also have some guys that do other duties as well. Greg is on the finance committee, Paul is on the joint communications committee, and I also serve on the alumni chapter board of directors and governments and development committees. So the building and grounds committee, our chair is Paul Gaffney, and myself, Eric Van Gorp, Lee Joel, and Bill Fleischbecker are the members. Some of the things we are working on right now and have developed since basically homecoming and our structure. We were charged at homecoming to find a place in the house for the Stand in the Gap monument, plaque, and book. So that has been done, and that is next to the stairs on main floor to the right. So we took down the carved crest and put that into the pool room. And then we took Brother Hayes's elk picture and put that by the back door on the wall. That is the first thing. And then we received a call at the end of the semester during finals week from Connor and some of the guys in the house saying that some of the members had been getting sick this last semester and that they did their own mold investigation. And they found that the mold levels in the air ducts seemed high. So we right away called ServPro and we had them go and do their own analysis and assessment. And they did find that our ducts were extremely dirty. They also found that there was poor ventilation in the bathrooms on 2nd and 3rd floor. So upon looking at that there was mold and the shower heads were just a mess. So they actually tore out some wall and did some remediation in the bathrooms. And upon, they had to go down and turn the water off. So when they went in the basement to turn the water off, they found the pipes were frozen. So that could have been a disaster if they would have burst, that would have flooded the basement. We eventually had to hire drain tech to come and take care of that. Long story short, we had everything taken care of by ServPro and drain tech. And we stressed that the cleanliness of the house is another thing that ServPro said it was an absolute pigsty, and that we had 2 of our board members there and they said the same thing. So Connor and Austin said that they would stress to the members of the house that they would clean it from top to bottom. ServPro said they could never do a mold analysis unless that house was clean. So hopefully the boys are taking care of that. We also had an issue with snow removal during the break, which Martin management, they dropped the ball, and that has since been taken care of. Going forward here this spring, we're going to be working on getting landscaping and lawn care plans, and basically just getting an overall curb appeal that we think is lacking at the house. Also next door to us, the Pikes, they're going to be renovating fairly soon, maybe as soon as this summer. And I have been working with their president of their properties. We have a little bit of a property line issue and also some drainage issues. And we will be getting those resolved hopefully this spring. We'll be doing a walk around with the undergrads this Saturday, not only to review the cleaning objectives, but also looking at the structure itself, both in the fraternity house and also in the annex, to see if there's any things we can adjust or fix, and also any updates we need as far as furniture or anything else like that. Next one, Greg. So our planning committee, as Tyler Mueller's the chairman, Ed Larson, Dan Duffy, Jim Linksweiler, Jeff Funk, John Fanning, Alex Davis, and Greg Marceau. We've really broken up our committee into 2 functions, and short-term goals and long-term. Our short-term is to remove Martin management from the annex management. This is basically because they're doing a terrible job, and we want to just take control of it. But it's going to take a huge effort from not only the undergrads, but the alumni as well. We have to fill up the annex and the house in order for us to, take it over. We can't do it without their cooperation. And if we don't fill it up, we have to keep a management company. That's just the bottom line. So that's going to take a lot of effort also on this committee, because of the annex there's no frills to it. You go off campus, there's so much other things to offer. So we're going to have to do a cost analysis and a cost reduction to keep our members over, our juniors and seniors going over to the annex. So Ty Mueller is going to be the lead for that committee. So our long-term goals, we are going to be reviewing the Phi Kappa Theta Building and Grounds Subcommittee plans and costs that were done. Well, they were started in 2019 and they were done in July of 2020. Rick Ball is was a chairman of that, with Paul Fisher, Casey Gerlitz, myself, Ty Mueller, and Eric Van Gorp. And basically, we've passed that on to this committee, our planning committee, and we're going to develop a new plan and subsequent capital campaign. And we're going to oversee either new construction, or we're going to see renovation, addition, and it's all probably going to be taken hopefully before 2028 or sooner. And Ed Larson will be the lead for this committee. I think that's it for me. Yep. So in closing, I just want to say, if you guys have any ideas or questions or anything for me or any of the, if you come to the house and you see anything, please let us know and we will get on it, because there's no bad ideas. So we thank everybody and have a good night. Any questions?
Tom, this is Jim Willer. First of all, this is a great presentation. Thank you for all the work you've done on the physical house. I think is really critical and important. Two questions. A, how is that the work that you're doing to clean and get the house back in shape? How is that funded?
That's coming out of the general alumni fund.
And we've got enough in that fund so far we're good to go there, huh?
Yes, we do.
And then second of all, the annex, which you're right, is sort of a no frills. When it was first built, it was like that was overflow for the house, and now that's not even maybe a question. Is that a financial drag? Is that really something that maybe at some point, I guess I'm sort of getting a sense that maybe you think that should be torn down or sold, and should we get out of the business of even having that facility? What do you think? What's your perception at this point?
Yeah, that's what we don't want to be. We don't want to be in the apartment business. I guess that's the bottom line. Eventually that's going to get torn down, and we'd like to make that a parking lot. When we expand the house, right now the plans are to expand the house toward Beach Avenue. And we're going to tear that thing down. So we don't want to stick a ton of money into it. That'd be just wasting money if we're going to tear it down. So, we just it does make us money when it's full. So we just got to tread lightly on how we're going to do things here.
How close to full is it today?
Now, there's 2 apartments that are empty right now.
2 out of 8 or so?
Yeah, there's 6. So
1/3 vacancy. Okay. So right now we suck money.
Yeah.
And we only rent 4 because they're relatively scabby relative to our competition.
Well, I hate to use scabby, but yeah, they're not.
I apologize.
But yeah, that's basically, in a nutshell. Yeah. And before we had Martin, PPM and Triplet, it seemed like they always kept them full. And now there seems like, there's 1 or 2 that are open all the time.
In our last meeting that we had, we discussed, if we're going to be looking at doing a whole building project with bigger numbers that, we discussed with the undergrads, that we need to get the house full and the annex full to make that a financially viable option. So we have to have some short-term goals where, okay, we ask the undergrads, okay, what do we got to do to fill the annex, first of all, because the apartments are not as nice as the competitive offerings that are out there. And the rent is already really cheap, but we also haven't been enforcing the 6 semester, commitment to be in the house. And so we're talking to them about, okay, how do we get back on that? Let's get the house and the annex full. We'll make some small investments in the annex to make it, a better option for juniors and maybe seniors to live in, so that we can capture that money to kind of reinvest back in the house, so that we can do this bigger overall project. And so that's, kind of what we're working on. At the same time, we need the house to be clean and make sure people are motivated to be proud of where they're living, and that's got to come from them. So we're going to try to go up there and kind of talk them through that if we can.
All right, I'm going to cut in, guys. We're running close on time with the Q&A session. So I'm going to, if you have any other questions, leave it to the longer Q&A at the end. We're going to move on to Connor Wiseman presenting on the Finance Committee.
Hey, Connor, you're on mute.
Yes, I apologize. Sorry. Thanks, Vito. I appreciate the introduction. I'm going to talk about the Finance Committee. I'm the treasurer of the alumni chapter, and I'm the chairman of this committee. The members are the three treasurers from each entity, myself, Andrew Mercer from the foundation, Greg Marzo from the Building Co., and then of course, Corey, who's the alumni chapter president. Some goals that we have are, the goals of the Finance Committee are to facilitate financial communication between all three entities, maintain accountability between treasurers, and then create a cohesive financial plan altogether. And some of the tools we're going to be using to do that is QuickBooks Online, which we have not set up yet, but that will be soon. So some of the responsibilities for the Finance Committee, they're pretty much the responsibilities of each treasurer, but like I said, we need to hold each other accountable for all of them. So operational financial oversight, creating budgets, and then we need to maintain policies for the flow of funds between entities and record keeping. And Treasury and Finance will oversee bank accounts and activity. All of our bank accounts right now are at Northwest Bank, but we will have investment accounts set up at Morgan Stanley soon. And then we need to oversee investment accounts, activity, and policies, of course. And then our year-end goals are financial preparation and tax compliance. So, I'm in the process of putting 990s together for all three corporations. And then of course, we'll maintain communication with our CPA firm that does our tax filings, which is McGowan, Hurst, Clark, and Smith, which is in Des Moines here. These are the balances as of 1/24. And like Corey talked about, we've got 30% of the Victor Fund in the alumni chapter money market account, and the other 70% is in the money market for the foundation. And again, those will be investment accounts soon in Morgan Stanley.
Hey, Connor, just a comment on that, since we've had some comments about where's the money coming from and being used. That building company, 62,000 is really what operates 80% of the money that flows for the fraternity in a year. It pays for the insurance, the property taxes, maintenance on the house. There's very limited stuff that doesn't run through the building corporation. So the alumni chapter is handling that homecoming and golf outing and events, but for the most part, the building company runs the show as far as bank account.
Yep. Thanks, Corey. And then the pressing items we have are budgets. So board presidents, board treasurer, please get together and try and get your budgets together for the next 45 days, or in the next 45 days. We'll shoot to have them done by March 15th. And in the future, we'll try and have them done by the end of the preceding calendar year. Any questions?
I'll say this has been a very manual process for the last 15 years between John Hicks and myself. And we're going to get to a point with QuickBooks and hopefully our CRM to where if someone wants a report of donations to the Jim Victor Endowment Fund, it's a press of a button and it organizes it, it makes it glossy. The Zyclone is communicating these operational and fund balances, and in a future state, we're going to be a lot more transparent and quick with our finances.
Connor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Who do you want, you or Corey can decide. I need to change the Martin Property Management contract so they send you guys the owner statements. Who wants that? Do you want it to go to you? Do you want it to go to Tom? Do you want it to go to Greg? Where do you want it to go?
I'm fine with taking them. I'm doing the bill paying for all three entities for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just want to make sure that that changed.
Send statements to Connor. Connor, when he pays bills, will keep Greg in the know and Tom in the know, but Connor will handle the tax documents.
Any other questions or concerns?
What's the status of money, particularly in the foundation, moving out of the either checking or money market fund and start to be deployed so that it earns some income that's going to generate our ability to make these distributions going forward?
We are to the point where the accounts are open at Morgan Stanley, but we need a voided check to make that connection to the bank to fund the accounts. The checks from Northwest Bank got sent to the fraternity, and so I am picking them up tomorrow night. We'll be able to send that along with signed IPSs, and that should give Morgan Stanley everything they need to get to the conversation of funding the accounts. And Ashley Schaefer and I have already had the discussion of the investment strategy and set aside cash and everything.
So it's imminent, is what you're telling me.
It's imminent. We have bank accounts funded, and it's just ready to roll.
Interesting. Okay, good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or concerns for the finance? I don't see any in the chat window, so if there's no questions for that, we're going to move on to Matt Braffart with the Communications Committee.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Right. Thank you for that introduction. So, hey, everyone, I'm Matt Braffart. Most of the faces here look familiar, recognize many of you. Some of you maybe are new to me. I am director for the Communications Committee, class of 98. Greg, I think the next slide has more information that I want to talk about. So this statement has a lot of, there's a lot here. And the Communications Committee is sort of at the heart of all the actions and the boards, and trying to create that cohesive connection between everything that we're doing. So whether it's communication between board members, whether it's communication between the board and the members, the membership, the undergrads, alumni, even stakeholders outside of alumni. The Communications Committee's roles and responsibilities are really to provide all of those tools and processes to facilitate all of that communication. And as Greg has said, and others in Corey has said, to create that transformational change, we need to really onboard the tools that will make this lasting for the next generation. So not just during my tenure, but whoever's next. And the storage of that data, the storage of that communication, things like this call right now, recording this, sending out campaigns for fundraising, emails, text blasts, even phone calls to members, anything necessary to make that happen. That's pretty much under the jurisdiction of the Communications Committee. So the procurement, onboarding, management, maintenance of all these tools, storing this data long-term, integrity of this data, the security of this data, and making it so that it's not just one guy or three guys that know how to do this. It's something that the next generation can take over, and it can keep going forward. Next slide. There we go. So what does that mean? So there's kind of two different areas of focus. One is all of the communication and activities that need to happen within the boards, within the alumni board and the foundation, the building corporations, so that we can have our Zoom meetings, we can have our video calls, we can send our emails back and forth, keep track of that somewhere. We can do our text messaging and whatever audio video needs, WhatsApp, some of the social media stuff. And then maintaining those documents in some kind of document management system so that it's retrievable by other members that come on later. And not only that, but so that it's searchable, or we can report on it, or just catalog or organize this data so that we don't have too much stuff that when we're looking for something, we can't find it, right? So making sense of all the data that we have. So that's going, so the communications committee is looking into products and tools to help support these things. There's some incumbents that are obvious that will probably, Microsoft, Google, that you've heard of, that do these types of things. But the job of the committee right now is to evaluate these products, find best of breed, and start to onboard those. So next slide. The other key area of this is the communications with the members, with the alumni members, and that's where the CRM comes in, and customer relationship management and donor management systems are essentially the same things. Donor management system is more focused towards fundraising and pledging and maintaining the records of what you've given, and targeting marketing campaigns towards individuals that are more likely to give because they've given in the past, and maintaining those records and communicating with those individuals with marketing, the email blasts and that types of things. And then maintaining the records of our members and individuals who have been donors, who have made pledges in the past, and then having a website presence so that we have current events, that members can understand what's going on, whether it's the golf outing or the Greg Stein event or whatever's next, right? And then the social media presence with Facebook and the under guys are doing a good job with, I think it's Instagram, things like that to stay in touch with members and to communicate current events, communicate what's going on, send out messaging about fundraisers, collect the donation or the pledge, the payment, and then relay it to the finance committee and Corey and the rest of the group. So that's sort of the focus of that area of the communications committee. I think that's next slide. I think that's all I had. So Q&A.
Does anyone have any questions for Matt? I'm not seeing any in the chat window as well. So if nobody has any questions, let's move on to Paul Peterson again on the development committee.
Okay, let's go to the first slide, please, Greg. Okay, so typically development refers to fundraising, right? Identifying donors, identifying current and future leaders, but it's a little different with us. We have a finite amount of people that are going to be involved in our organization. This isn't like the American Cancer Society where we can go out and continue to find new donors or new people to get involved. And so we're taking on a broader definition here, right? We want to develop, as we had talked about earlier, our men as servant leaders and participants and donors, right? And so we want to make sure that that relationship with our organization that we had as an undergrad continues throughout your life as you transition into the alumni chapter. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the development. These are things we're working on, and this is a very ambitious agenda, right? Obviously, a lot of this stuff that we're going to talk about is not in place. It's going to take time. Maybe it's wishful thinking on our part, but here's the game plan here. So the 4 areas: leadership, engagement, fundraising, and funds. We will get into those on the next few slides. But you guys are seeing, I apologize, I missed the first few minutes, but at the bottom of all these slides is inform, inspire, ask, and thank. And that's really what we're trying to do here as we develop people to be sharing time, talent, and treasure with our organization. Next slide, please. Okay, so the virtuous cycle, right? This is obvious. Graduating seniors, we have our graduating senior ceremony. And then something that we really haven't been good at is then taking it from there, taking these young alumni, making sure they're immediately engaged in the alumni chapter to some extent, and then working on developing some leadership within the alumni chapter with them, enhanced participation, some generosity, get people in the habit of making annual gifts, have people think about Stand in the Gap, other memorial efforts, the Greg Stein Fund, when we did a push for Corey Krebs during his untimely passing, right? Getting people to think of that, and regular giving is not something that we're used to seeing within our alumni base, right? So developing that. And then of course, grants from this fundraising efforts go back to support the undergraduate chapter and the community. And then a little further down the spectrum here, special appeals, that would be like the last campaign we did, endowment gifts, planned giving. That is something that basically, I mean, that's what Jim Victor did, right? And for those of you that are younger, planned giving is remembering our organization in your wills, your trusts, your life insurance policies, however you have your financial house in order for the end of your life. And working through this cycle, the undergraduate chapter improves. I mean, but at the end of the day, this is a little bit different for us. And we were talking to Adam Wilbur. At the end of the day, we're only going to have this many alumni in our organization. We're constantly going to be adding, and we're going to constantly be having alumni move to chapter eternal. And so we just want to enhance everybody's experience so they want to continue to give back to our organization. Next slide, please. So let's talk about some of the leadership programs here. Graduating senior ceremony. We know what this is. We know this was something that was big for Greg Stein, but then what do we do with it? You know, in the past, well, hope to see you at homecoming, right? Maybe they'll come around for the golf outing. Half of the time we lose their contact information for like 5 or 10 years. Well, we're trying to change that. So, you know, can we invite that student to, or undergrad, to participate in as alumnus volunteer within a year? All right, can we get them to commit to an annual giving, whatever that level is? Small, of course, you're establishing your career in your life, but get people in the habit of giving to this organization. Next slide, please. XiLOC, that's what we're doing right now, right? And so the idea would be to have this course every year for onboarding, just to make sure that we're all pointing in the same direction. Next slide, please, Greg. Quo Vadis. All right, so we're talking about Quo Vadis and strategic planning. In odd years, this is a Quo Vadis for alumni, right? And trying to do the same thing we did with Quo Vadis as an undergrad, but doing it from an alumni perspective and from the alumni chapter organization. And then in even years, do a one-day strategic planning session too. Again, ambitious perhaps, but this would be outstanding if we could get this going. That way we could constantly have a strategic plan that's updated, and we just don't dust it off once every 15 years and try to see what's going on and what our plan is. Next slide, please. All right, let's talk about engagement. President's Council. This is a new concept too. Basically, it would be any sort of leader that we've had from our organization. So this would be a group of chapter presidents, national and fraternity foundation officers, staff, anybody that's ever served on alumni boards. This would be a group of our leaders that we could use for a few different things. Maybe there's an annual Zoom meeting, maybe biannual, maybe before we undertake some large capital campaign or a new idea, we'd want to bounce this off of the President's Council and pull them together and see if anybody had any input. Basically, a receptacle of collective wisdom from the leadership that we've had throughout the years. Next slide. Ambassadors. So this is something similar to what we did during the capital campaign, where we had era leaders and class leaders that would help call and motivate people from their classes. Maybe it's just something as simple to let's show up to homecoming, or to give to a capital campaign, or to increase online giving, or anything like that. Next slide. Koinonia. This is a neat concept too, right? This is basically like Pledge Dads, only with alumni. And so you'd have older alumni brothers paired with younger ones. And think about the difference between when you were 18 and you were 22, 23, and what your Pledge Dad did for you. Now picture you're in your early 20s and you're talking to someone in their 60s that's just got a lot more collective life wisdom and a lot more fun stories to share. So that's a program we'd like to get going to. Fundraising programs, we've talked about this a little bit already, but there's basically the pyramid, right? Annual giving, memorial gifts, into special appeals or capital campaigns, and into legacy giving. Keep going. Right? Everybody knows what we did in the last campaign. It was very successful. Next slide. And a few different funds that we have here. The Stand in the Gap, that's been well publicized to be able to give money in the name of fallen brothers. Continue. Richard Kincannon Scholarship, that's the one that we've had established for, I want to say, about 15 years. Oh, no, sorry, it's on there, 2004, excuse me. That gives scholarships out each semester. Continue. Obviously, Jim Victor, right? Some fun slides there, including Mr. Willer there. All right, we've talked about this a lot. Continue. Greg Stein, and we will be pushing hard for a memorial. We will be fundraising hard right now. The development committee will be for this particular fund. And what we're going to do with this fund on the next one, things that were important to Greg. He would always take the graduating seniors out to dinner after the graduating senior ceremony. We want to keep that going, and we want this to pay for that. He also spent, during his sabbaticals, countless hours in the basement tutoring. And so tutoring services that are typically picked up by the house itself, we'd like to continue. And then if we can get enough money in their need-based scholarships. And what we're trying to do is raise $60,000 by the end of this year. And I can tell you, without really trying already, that we're about a third of the way there. And you will be hearing from us about this in the very near future. I'm wrapping up, Johnny. Questions?
I don't see any in the chat window. Before we move on, I just wanted to ask, we've been here a little, almost an hour and 15 minutes. Does anybody need to take a restroom break? Speak now or forever hold your peace. If not, we're going to continue on with Greg on the leader expectations and next steps.
All right, thanks, John. So what I'll cover for the next few minutes are really expectations of all of us as servant leaders for Iowa Xi. I thought it'd be appropriate just to refresh our memories, about what the mission and vision are of the fraternity. So we all learned this as undergraduates and have seen it over the years as alumni, but the mission statement for the fraternity is to actively develop men to be effective servant leaders who passionately serve society, fraternity, and God. So the vision for the fraternity is to be the premier human development organization, inspiring confidence through life experiences. Pretty lofty vision as vision statements go, and that's what vision statements are designed to be. They promote their talking about they're aspirational in nature, what the organization wants to be in the future, what it wants to accomplish. The other thing I just wanted to share, and I'm not going to read all of this, but it's the purpose, what's our purpose as Phi Caps, and what does it mean to be a Phi Cap brother? So I think many of us learned this over the years as either the pillars of the fraternity or the ideals or the areas of development. And I think in modern day organizations, you would call these the values. They're all synonymous. And there's only been, at least as far as I know, 2 changes to these from when I first learned them back in the 1980s. So back then there were 4 pillars, and it was fraternal, social, intellectual, spiritual. And then leadership was added in the 1990s, which, I think no one would disagree with. We really are about developing men to be servant leaders. And then last year, funny enough, there was one minor change that was approved at the National Convention, and they changed really just the word social to societal. So just wanted to flag that for you. Societal is the new social, but really the definition of it has not changed. So our motto, give, expecting nothing thereof. Some of us might have it tattooed someplace, but we all know it. The interesting thing is that Greg Stein was actually instrumental in lobbying the fraternity to adopt this as a motto at the 1973 convention. At that time, Greg was just a recent graduate. And before that, the motto for the fraternity was God in college. And that's why you'll probably be or recognize some of the old fraternity cheers are God in college, blank, blank, blank. So these are really what we as leaders for the alumni organization came up with as expectations for all of us. So these are both from the standpoints as servant leaders ourselves, but also as brothers, and how to inspire each other and inspire other brothers. So I am going to read through these because I think this is at the core of what we're trying to achieve by transforming our culture. So be a generous servant leader, live the motto, develop ourselves and our brothers in those 5 pillars or ideals or areas of development. We ask that all of us, as servant leaders for Iowa's Eye, replace ourselves twice, and that you do that by recommending other candidates to serve and help recruit too. And last, we ask to give generously, and that's give generously of time and talents, but also your financial resources, treasure. And we are not, there's no dues that we have in place or anything like that. It's really based on the principle that all gifts make a difference, and it's really not about the amount, it's really about the act of giving. And for those that, would like to have a suggested gift, we do suggest that our alumni, whether you're, a leader in the organization or not, consider making a recurring gift of $20 a month. For some people that might be too much. We understand that, but the fact that you at least make a donation, would be certainly an expectation of all of our alumni organization leaders. So there are some responsibilities that we share as servant leaders. I'm not going to read through all of these, but some of these are, kind of obvious or self-understood. I mean, you really need to kind of understand and know what the mission and vision and goals of your corporate entity are. And to put a finer point on it, that means, the mission, vision, and goals of the alumni chapter, or the foundation, the Iowa Xi Foundation, or the building corporation. And these have not actually been fully developed yet. So I think this is where that transformation part comes into play, is that all of you are going to play an integral role in developing those. And then it goes on, so developing strategic plans. They don't exist today. We don't even have operating plans. We don't even have budgets yet. But I'm pretty confident that by the end of this year, we'll have budgets and all of the three entities will have some kind of operating plan for this year and even for 2023. I'm going to skip to the last two here because I do, again, it's, at the risk of stating the obvious, they are the most important. So one is to be present, attend meetings or be engaged in things that pertain to you and your responsibilities as a servant leader. And certainly participate, whenever you can, because, frankly, a big part of our brotherhood is relationships, and to do relationships and build them, you need to engage with other alumni. Virtual is okay, in person is best. And I think we all look forward to that day when we can get back together in person, whether it's a golf outing or homecoming or a weekend event in Ames. So I'm just going to cover next steps, things, seeds we'd like to plant with each of you to think about for the future. So, in your corporation board or committee or team, wherever you are within the organization, think about how you can participate and help with creating those vision and mission statements and strategic plans and operating plans and budgets. But we'd also like you to think about your replacement. So a big framework that we have for this new organization, this transformation, is that these are not jobs for life. They all have defined end dates. And we would love to have people at the end of their 3-year assignment re-up for another tour or even move to a different job in the organization. We don't want them to get burned out or feel like they're stuck in a job, a volunteer job for life. So you should be consciously thinking about, what you can do to make it easy to transition your job to the next guy. So, and simple things like a 1-page job description or even half a page, and a transition file, something just with some notes in it about things that you learned or information you'd like to pass on that would make it easier for the next guy. Because I think Paul said at the beginning is that, we all stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. So, let's make it easier for the next guy.
Hey, Greg, we're hitting time. If you could wrap up.
Okay, thanks, John. And the last one here is for yourself, meet your expectations as a leader. But last but not least is to have fun too. So we've been throwing a lot of information at you tonight. Some of it can be a little dry. Some speakers like me might have a little, still have that Midwest monotone voice. So it really is about having fun and doing all of those things that struck chords with us when we were undergraduates and younger alumni. So be sure to have fun. Questions? Okay, well, I'll turn it over to Paul Peterson. We'll talk about references and tools.
Yeah, and actually Greg should talk about this because he did all the work. So I take no credit for any of this, but okay. Right now, like it or not, we're using Google Drive. The communications committee is working on other avenues for us to do this. All right. Greg, since you're running the show here, do you want to just quick show what we have? And this is for people who aren't familiar with it necessarily. I know most of you probably are, but.
Sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing.
And we're not going to go into a 5-minute demo here, guys.
No, we're not.
Or while he's talking. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Can you see this as the folder tab on it? Okay. I'll just make this quick. So within Google Drive, all of you have access to it. You will see at the very top, it's called IOSI, and everything related to IOSI is in it. As each of the 3 corporations, Alumni Chapter, Foundation, Building Corporation, there's a folder for undergraduates if they like. In these last 2 folders, it's just stuff that I need to work on. So I'm going to show you the Alumni Chapter as an example, and you'll find all the committees in there, and then there are some functional folders as well, like meetings, the board. But here, that's just for fun. Here's the Development Committee. That's what Paul and I and John serve on. So again, more subfolders, but one in here in particular is XiLOC. And one of the things that you'll receive in the next few days will be a link to that folder with references. And these are like the 12 or 13 most important documents you guys might want to take a peek at related to your whatever corporation you're working in.
Yeah, so getting back to the slide deck here, in the email, there's a few things we do want you to read. They're short reads. What it means to be a FICAP, again, I mean, a lot of the stuff we went through, the new IWSI organization, the link to that, and then the leader contact list that's got everybody's contact info. And then what we invite you to do is peruse the contents of the folder for your corporation so you're dangerous enough to be able to navigate a little bit and see what's in there. There's a ton of stuff in a lot of those folders, so we're not expecting everybody to read everything, but just understand where your information is. Next slide, please. Here's a list, pktalumni.com. That is something that we put together 10 years ago, and then we haven't updated it since 2016. You can still sign up for the 2016 golf outing on there. So I'll see you 6 years ago this summer. But the communications committee is working on that. All right. So pktalumni.com. It's not dead. It's been there. It just hasn't been updated. We ran out of resources, but we have them now. Don't forget there's the foundation and then the undergraduate website. I don't even know if you guys know there's an undergraduate website. And so pay attention to that. For those of you that have any form of social media, which I despise, but most people do, there's the information for that too. And the undergrads, I am told, do an excellent job on, I believe, Instagram is the one that they use heavily, as we mentioned earlier. So next slide. Again, there's more information there. There's the foundation, the fraternity, and there is a professional network on LinkedIn. Okay, communication tools. Right, again, Matt Broffart's communications team is working on all of this, but what we have right now is we're using video conferencing with individual accounts. If you guys run into a situation where you need one, let Greg Stolp know. All right, he's got a personal Zoom one that he will use when necessary. Well, when he has meetings, but certainly he'd loan it out. Otherwise, most of you guys already use something probably for work anyway. MailChimp is what has been doing our emails for the last decade. So we'll continue to use that from now. Pennington is the company that handled the capital campaign for us, the consultant, and has been keeping our membership records and continuing to publish and do the layout of the XiClone and write some of the content. So you guys should be fairly familiar with, or at least heard of them. There's the number of membership records we have. 134 lost alumni is something that people are going to be trying to track down. So those lists will probably go out. If anybody can help us find some of those people, odds are they're some of your buddies. And we will continue to do the spring and fall XiClone as we have been. It got a little late this year. Typically we get it out in November. It just came out. That was part of the transition. So bear with us, but we'll try to get back on a regular schedule. Again, the mailing address. And we are, Finance Committee is looking at obtaining a safe deposit box, but that PO box is the same place you've been mailing the mail to the alumni chapter for a long time. Just note that it used to go to Ames by Kappa Building Company, and now we've got a few different names, but as long as you put IWSI on there, it'll get there anyway. Questions about that?
Paul, just maybe it's more Greg, Paul, the earlier you were talking about if I wanted to just sign up to, give $20 a month, there was a link on there. Where do you do that at? Is it the foundation? Is it the nationals? How do I do that?
Great question. Right now, go ahead, Greg. Go ahead.
Good question, Matt. Right now, that donor landing page is hosted by the National Foundation for Us. They set that up for us for the annual appeal. It's active, and it will be active until we tell them to change it.
Okay.
And,
Hey,
and
Greg.
that link is a live link in the slides too, by the way. And we'll send that out to everyone in the email early next week.
Brian, did you have a question or a comment?
Greg just answered it. I wondered if we could get the deck as just a high-level reference. Thanks.
Any other questions or concerns? All right, I think we're ready to move on then, Greg. Just briefly recapping what we saw tonight. We saw Greg and Paul present on the background and the impetus of the changes that are happening currently. We saw Corey present on the alumni chapter and its functions. Joe Rude presented on the foundation and its functions and its structure. Tom presented on the building corporation, what it does, its goals, it's all that. Connor presented on the finance committee and some of the numbers there. Matt presented on the communications committee, what our sources there, our future there for communications and how it all coalesces there. Paul again presented on the development committee. Greg talked a little bit about on what some of our expectations are for our leaders and some of the next steps we can take as alumni leaders. Then Paul and Greg again tag teamed on the references and tools that we have available. And like they said earlier, we plan on sending the email. Probably we're going to try to get it out by Tuesday with the references for this presentation and the slide deck and all that. Please take a few minutes to go through that stuff. Take 10-ish minutes just to hit the high points. If you want to do a deep dive and you have the time, that's fine. But just at least take a few minutes to take a look at that. We also plan on sending out a post-course survey via email within the next 10 to 15 days, leaning closer to the 10 days, on how we can improve XiLOC for the future. Respond as soon as possible. We want to use your feedback to try and improve it for next year's XiLOC. I don't have anything else for that. Do we have any ending questions for the presenters or in general? Because that's it, everybody.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm looking at a screen of this many people involved. This is great. So a few years ago, I never would have thought we'd be staring at this right now. So thank you. 90 minutes is a long time. I know it's a weeknight. We appreciate your participation. Hopefully this was worthwhile. I hate filling out surveys more than anybody, but that would help if you have suggestions for us to be able to improve this, since we're kind of making this up as we go.
Yeah, we know we're not perfect. We're just trying to make it the best, most pleasant experience for something that we all got to do.
Is Jim Willer still on the call?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Jim, you don't know me, but I have a comment. You were a contemporary of Steve Maloney's.
Yes.
And his younger brother, Mike, and I were contemporaries in the mid-'70s and have remained close over the years. And he would send me, we communicate a lot by text, and he sent me a Facebook link from Dowling High School. And it was a picture from the mid-'60s with Coach Al DeMarco, the track coach, and play teams of which you were a part. And I got to say, you guys looked very smart in your jacket and ties, and you looked very fast too.
We were fast. We were also white, and I weighed about 140, not 220.
You did look fit, but Mike said that.
Thank you. I've
been trying to find it for the last 2 hours, but I can't. So.
Very good. Very good.
Yes.
This has been a really good session, by the way. It's great to see a lot of you. I look forward to pretty soon, many of us getting together face to face. It'll be great, great, great fun.
All right. Anybody else have questions or concerns? Otherwise, I think we can people can log off if they like. I mean, it has been an hour and 35 minutes, guys.
I just wanted to say a final thank you. Thank you to the development committee for putting all this together and getting the ball rolling. So thanks for leading this tonight, guys.
Corey, I do want to say one thing. in the Zyklon that we just got a couple days ago. And you know I'm a bow tie aficionado. I loved your bow tie, buddy. You look pretty spiffy in it.
Thank you. I have an affinity for them. I like to pop them out when I can.
Very good, gentlemen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone have a great day.
Really well. Thank you.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah. You want to stay on?
Yeah. Johnny, you too.
Yep.
Hey,
I figured.
Hey, great job, you guys.
You too, Tom.
Just thank all the presenters. You guys did an awesome job. So really appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you at our next meeting. When is it? Tomorrow?
Well, if you want one, Tom, we'll schedule it just for you.
All right.
When is the next meeting? It's Saturday, right?
Saturday at 9:30.
Saturday at 9:30, I think. Yeah.
All right.
9:30 Central.
I'll report on how bad the
Yeah.
house is. Hopefully it's in good shape, boys.
Yeah.
Ed's presenting on Saturday, right, Tom?
Yeah, Ed is on Saturday. I'll be at the house. So
Okay, just wanted to double check on that.
Yep.
Nice job, guys. Thanks.
I could hear Mush's blood boiling when you talked about, like over Zoom, when you talked about the condition of the chapter house, and I could just feel him be like, yes, somebody said it but me.
I'm gonna, if he shows up Saturday, I might have to hold him back.
There's no doubt.
Handcuffs and a muzzle on him, maybe. I don't know.
Real quick, two things. Tom, I'm going up for the initiation tomorrow night, but I probably won't be there Saturday with work and doing the XiLOC. The other item is Morgan Stanley wants signed investment policy statements by both organizations, which will be the alumni chapter and now the foundation. The foundation was obvious, but we initially submitted our RFP for the building corporation to have an investment account. I'm updating the investment policy statement to the alumni chapter. So we'll have both of those entities and executive directors sign it, but that's just a point I wanted to get out. So
you need me to sign anything though?
You don't. I'll have Joe Rood and his executives and then the alumni chapter once I get it all revised. So, all right. Guys.
I'm just curious, did Joe have an investment policy already?
Joe did, yes.
Oh, okay.
Not approved by the foundation since they didn't exist.
Gotcha.
So we need them to approve it and to sign it. We had submitted the building corp instead of the alumni chapter once that tax guidance got put. So I'm adjusting all the building corp references to alumni chapter references. So
gotcha.
Yep.
All right, guys. I'm going to get off. Have a good night.
Thank Tom.
You too.
You as well.
John, great job.
Last night, we need to win Saturday. We got to keep this straight.
There you go. Beat Mizzou.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Good
All
job
right,
leading.
I think that went all right, John. I think you did a good job keeping things flowing.
Yeah, I was a little bit more flexible because our Q&As were extremely short. So I was a little bit more, I was trying to be a little bit more flexible there.
No, I thought it was great. Yeah, I mean, the only thing that jacked me up was the fact that I was late. Greg, you're not running through that slide deck. So it probably felt a little rushed when I got there because I sat down and I'm like, 2 minutes? All right, let's go. But that was my fault. I didn't get back from the preschool thing in time. And then I started talking. Daughters come in and start screaming and I'm like, but we'll have that better down. But no, I thought our time was good. Jim Willer had a bunch of good stuff, good questions, but mostly everybody else is quiet.